Now it's time for a booster, a Movin'On startup booster. Total is pleased to welcome Ampersand, Atawey and Chargetrip for short presentations on how to support energy transition towards decarbonization. This will be followed by a masterclass on mobility's next frontier, how to accelerate the decarbonization with electric vehicles. In this interactive activity, you will explore one big question. What's required to ignite a surge in electric vehicle adoption and hopefully pave the road to sustainability?
Today, we need to imagine and build tomorrow's mobility, a more sustainable kind of mobility. To accelerate the movement, we created the Movin'On Startup Booster to support promising startups. Our objective is to boost their network, visibility, and business. This year, with 16 Movin'On partners, we have decided to focus on 4 priorities for sustainable mobility. Support the energy transition towards decarbonization, improve safety through connected solutions, optimize people's journeys, design circular approaches for mobility products and services. To move from ambition to action, we selected 12 startups whose innovations provide solutions to these challenges. Welcome to this flash talk focusing on supporting the energy transition towards decarbonization. Our partner Total, represented today by Girish Nadkarni, will explore this topic with 3 startups: Ampersand, Attaway and Chargetrip.
Transportation contributes close to 20% of greenhouse gases, and so any discussion of energy transition is incomplete without exploring how mobility is helping to drive decarbonization. I am Girish Nadkarni, CEO of Total Carbon Neutrality Ventures, and it is my pleasure to discuss how startups in the mobility space are supporting energy transition towards decarbonization. With me today are Josh Whale of Ampersand from Rwanda, Geoffroy Ville of Attaway from France, and Peter Waller of Chargetrip from the Netherlands to discuss how their startups contribute to decarbonization. Geoffroy, hydrogen is the next big thing. What are you doing in the hydrogen space, and how did you come upon that idea?
Yeah, you're right, Girish. Hydrogen is now identified as one of the key vectors for energy transition. And so in this frame, Attaway is designing and manufacturing green hydrogen refilling stations. And we actually entered this adventure 6 years ago with the development of a new hydrogen mobility ecosystem, the hydrogen bicycles, for which we developed dedicated refueling stations. And now, 6 years later, we have a range of refueling stations to refuel cars, forklifts, buses, well, actually everything that is running with hydrogen. And we are quite proud of this success, as 30% of installed refueling stations in France are Attaway stations.
Thank you. Josh, when we talk of decarbonization, we often talk of China, the US, or India. What are you doing in Rwanda, and why there?
Thanks, Girish. At Ampersand, we believe that it's actually commercial drivers in emerging markets that have the most to gain from e-mobility in 2021. Ampersand's focus is on the 5 million commercial taxi and delivery motorcycle drivers here in East Africa, starting right here in Kigali, Rwanda. Firstly, here we have a large, densely concentrated fleet of customers, 30,000 here in Kigali alone, making up over half of all vehicle traffic on the road. These drivers also cover large distances each day, spending $8 billion a year in East Africa. And thirdly, the fuel spend is a real pain point for the individual driver. So often they spend more on fuel than they take home at the end of the day. and drivers need new motorcycles every 3 or 4 years. So just making everyone's next motorbike electric, we could actually switch this entire fleet well before 2030.
Thank you. Peter, what does ChargeTrip offer?
ChargeTrip offers predictive route planning and navigation specific for electric vehicles. So we believe that the future of mobility is going to be largely electric. Many of you will know that living with an EV is harder than living with an internal combustion engine car. Driving and charging is unpredictable. People don't know where to charge, when to charge, how long it will take, or how much it will cost. And we thought that this was a bit ridiculous. So 4 years ago, we developed a completely different type of routing engine that is capable of routing any EV currently on the road anywhere and calculate the optimal trip from A to B, including the charge stations in between. Giving people the confidence to drive an EV effortless like they are used to driving their regular car. So that's how we accelerate the global adoption of electric driving.
Thank you. Josh, one of the challenges for EV adoption has been the cost. So how do you make sure that your motorcycles cost less to buy and run than fuel-based motorcycles?
Well, so the first thing we did is we went out and designed and built a smart battery pack that's uniquely made to cost less per cycle than using fuel. Not just light and cheap and energy dense like most of the battery packs that are out there for scooters and electric motorbikes. The next thing we did was build a network of simple, low-cost charging stations. So this means we can cover Africa's biggest cities with dozens of stations for less than the cost of even one modern fuel station. And then we recharge these batteries and rent out the battery packs from those charging stations as a fast swap station. So drivers actually come into the stations, we swap out the battery pack for them, and then drivers pay to rent the batteries according to how much power that they actually use, just like buying fuel, except it's faster and cheaper. Maintenance also costs less. And so the result is drivers that save up to $600 a year, often doubling their take-home income.
Thank you. Peter, how do you go to market? Do you go direct to consumer? Can you download your app on iPhones, or do you go through OEMs? How do you do that?
So we are a B2B SaaS company. So we offer our routing engine through our API, which allows OEMs or mobility service providers or fleet operators to integrate our EV routing technology into their existing navigation, charge, telemetry, or in-car applications. So also those are the type of customers that we work for all over, and soon hopefully as well.
Okay. Geoffroy, one of the challenges EVs had was a chicken and egg problem in terms of, they were not buying enough EVs because there were not enough charging stations and vice versa. How are you trying to address that problem in the hydrogen ecospace?
Yeah, that is a tricky point because we actually have the same problem. So, no vehicles, no stations, or no stations, no vehicles. So at Attaway, we address this challenge with an innovative approach on the products and also on the business model. So on the product side, we start with station designed to refuel very small fleet of hydrogen vehicles. Like you can start with one car or with one bus, for instance, so that all of the city or companies that want to enter the hydrogen mobility market can do it with the station having the right capex and the right opex. We also offer scalable solution to afford the increase of vehicle. And then on the business model side, we offer leasing solution also. We propose to purchase the small station back to install larger station instead and grow along with our customers' projects.
Okay. Peter, when one thinks of decarbonization, one thinks about PV cells and wind turbines, etc. How does digital technology help us towards decarbonization?
So I think the way we help is actually we make all this technology more more user-friendly by introducing smart software solutions. So the biggest barriers to EV driving is this fragmented ecosystem of charging and driving. And by having an always up-to-date, predictable EV route plan, we make charging and driving effortless for private drivers, but more importantly, we make it easier for fleets to start to electrify their complete car park, because that is, from a theoretical point of view, very interesting because they can save a lot of cost. But practically, due to all these additional variables and inconsistencies, it's super difficult for an operator. So we work with fleets to create fleet solutions where the fleet operators always have a predictable EV route plan, and the drivers know exactly when and where to charge, how to optimize the total cost of operating that fleet.
Thank you. Geoffroy, who do you see as your initial and long-term customers?
Yeah, so our first customers were cities that wanted to introduce hydrogen in their territories. Now, hydrogen is moving on another scale. The interest in hydrogen is larger and larger every year. And a strong industry as well around hydrogen is being developed in many countries. So now we see key industrial investing in the hydrogen economy. So we are working not only with cities or regions, but also with utility companies, with renewable players, with companies engaged in green logistics, with companies that design industrial areas, gas distributor, and so on. So at the beginning, 100% of our customers were from the public sector, but now more than 50% of our customers are private companies.
Thank you. So in the short time left, in one sentence, Josh, what are your next steps for Ampersand?
We're expanding beyond Rwanda to Kenya. We're investing heavily in R&D, and we'll be raising Series B of equity and debt in early 2021.
Thank you. Peter, how is MovinOn helping you to accelerate and can help you further?
So it's connecting us to the innovators, the corporate innovators connected to MovinOn. And obviously, we are looking for additional partners who want to improve the user experience of driving electric cars and help to accelerate EV fleet adoption.
Excellent. Geoffroy, what is your message to MovinOn and our attendees, if any?
Well, actually, it's more a call than a message. So it's a call for partners. We are well established in France today with 30 stations installed. And we are willing to expand our business in Europe. So we are looking for partners to deploy our solution all over Europe.
Okay. Josh, a quick question. Is this a niche solution for Africa, or do you see a broader impact for Ampersand?
Well, the sort of 150 and 100cc motorcycles that we replace represent actually about 80% of the entire world motorcycle market. This is also the swarms of motorbikes in India and Southeast Asia. Increasingly, even in those countries, companies like Grab and Gojek are making the proportion and number of commercial motorbikes increase even more than before as well. But big motorbike OEMs tell us they're still years away from an e-motorcycle solution in this segment because they lack a viable battery pack. Drivers are unwilling to pay the upfront cost of the battery pack, and because of solution. And I'm very optimistic that we've now solved that problem. So we have a solution that's relevant in much of the world.
Excellent. We appreciate Ampersand, Attaway, and Chargetrip participation in the discussion of supporting energy transition towards decarbonization. And I also want to thank the MovinOn ecosystem for all the support they have offered these and other startups. And my group also is very glad to be one of MovinOn's partners and support these startups to foster sustainable mobility. Thank you, Josh, Geoffroy, and Peter. And I just want to, and also very special thank you to all the guests and attendees. And I want you to know that the speakers are happy to interact and respond to your questions through the various MovinOn network tools. This is Girish Nadkarni signing off. Keep safe and be sure to watch your carbon footprint.